well into Northern Europe, where some researchers have not only linked the Phoenician alphabet to the Germanic runes, but author L.A. Waddell even published a book called The Phoenician Origin of Britons, Scots, and Anglo-Saxons. When one considers the symbols used and revered by the Vikings and notices their similarity to that of the Phoenicians, then one can make better sense of the recent genomic sequencing, which claims that the Vikings settled Northern Europe from places like Asia, Eurasia, and the southern Mediterranean. Keep in mind that several millennia ago, these places were synonymous with ancient Aryans, which spread out into places like India and Europe, bringing with them their metals, horses, chariots, and languages, such as English, German, and Sanskrit, which are collectively referred to as Indo-European. This diffusion of agricultural civilization, domesticated animals, and advanced metals by a seafaring empire also explains why their symbols and mythology can be seen mirrored in so many seemingly diverse civilizations, whose royalty and nobility were anything but diverse in antiquity. I've already discussed the evidence that the Phoenician Empire extended into North America, as Michigan copper helped to fuel the Bronze Age in Europe. A close examination of Mystery Hill in New Hampshire will also reveal similarities to other archaeological sites used by ancient worshippers of Baal, which is another term used by the Canaanites for Jupiter, or Zeus, which traverses the sun's ecliptic over its 12-year orbit, which is the true origin of our zodiac, and directly linked to all other solar cults that revere the number 12, regardless of whether they themselves are aware of it or not. Mystery Hill was littered with ancient Phoenician inscriptions, and in Davenport, Iowa, ancient inscribed stone tablets were dug up inside of Native American burial mounds, many of which incidentally contained the remains of men with giant stature, often covered in red ochre, which were published in many newspapers when discovered during the last several centuries, but like the stone tablets themselves, have been labeled as fakes, hoaxes, and anyone that attempts to study them academically is at once labeled with discrimination against Native Americans, who themselves retain legends of ancient tribes of giants, some with red hair, seafaring civilizations, and races of people who are sometimes feared and sometimes revered as gods with a small g. While the Bible speaks of giants roaming the earth in the remote past, so do many other mythologies from around the world, as quoted by the Greek poet Homer in 400 BC, saying, "On the earth there once were giants," or is communicated by Native American tribes, who have a long oral tradition passed down concerning inhabitants with an unusually large demeanor. In fact, it was none other than President Abraham Lincoln who was quoted in 1848 as saying before Congress that, quote, "the eyes of that species of extinct giant, whose bones fill the mounds of America, have gazed on Niagara as our eyes do now." What was this giant species Lincoln spoke of? A race many presumed to be of a tall, strong, and intellectually sophisticated people. Well, we know that the ancient American landscape was littered with many ancient burial mounds, and while digging, exploring, or legitimate testing in an anthropological context is forbidden these days, this was not always the case.